Welcome to the Conduit Deeper podcast, a podcast that takes a deep dive into the details that surround our current sermon series, from current events to fascinating finds to conversations that take us deeper into the Word. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome to the Deeper Podcast. My name is Mo, executive pastor at Conduit Church, joined with our lead pastor, Darren Tyler. And just kind of a heads up heading into this podcast, we're going to get nerdy.
It's been a minute. I feel like I restrict my nerdiness because again, my wife's wisdom, just because you think it's fascinating, Darren, does not mean it is.
True.
Yeah. As evidenced when I started talking about, atomic atoms and nuclei on an Easter sermon, and Shannon immedially, this is a true story it was a Saturday night service. She's like, you can't. Actually, you were too, I think.
I did.
Yeah, you guys were both coming in hot.
I tapped the brakes.
I came in so fired up, like all excited about all this stuff I learned, and I totally forgot it was Easter.
Yeah, but there is a place for fascinating things.
The Deeper Podcast.
The podcast. And it gives you a really good outlet, gives us a really good outlet to talk about things. So we can't it's just really hard to get to with full context, full explanation on a Sunday morning when we're really trying to get to the meat of the text. But there's some really fascinating, interesting, fun things that are out there that are worth discussing that are relevant to the passage that we're going through, which is what kind of makes it fun.
Yeah, wasn't it? I'm going to say Barth. Someone fact check. I think it was Karl Barth that said that you have to hold a newspaper in one hand and the Bible in the other. In culture.
Yeah, I feel like that's what we do each week on there.
Yeah, exactly, right? And so on Sunday, I got 30 minutes. We got to make sure that we're focusing on those that don't know Jesus while simultaneously knowing that there is a mini apocalypse, like a Carmageddon going on in the parking lot. So if I don't get that landed, so we just, and look, on a Sunday morning, this is a true, I don't know of any other place in society where, we could have a couple thousand people sitting all over this building that we get everybody from seminary grads to somebody that literally doesn't know anything about Jesus, and everything in between sitting. So somehow trying to thread that needle, it kind of feels like maybe what a one-room schoolhouse might have felt like in the 1800s. Like,
yeah.
How do you teach algebraic equations to the sixth graders with a kindergartner, who's over there pulling his finger? Right? You got to somehow do it. So that's the Deeper Podcast is that for us. This is the old school Wednesday night service, right? Like when the guy would sit down and teach for an hour, and in another lifetime that worked. But if we did that now, nobody would be here except us, because the way the culture has changed. So this is our Wednesday night service.
Let's just dive into it. You talked about, we started Galatians chapter 5 in our Unchained series through the book of Galatians. First part of chapter 5, and you begin the teaching, which is the chapter 5 itself is really about like spirit and flesh kind of warring. The ultimate theme is liberty and freedom in the gospel. But woven through all that is a lot of discussion points. But you brought to the table on Sunday this podcast, the Diary of a CEO podcast by Stephen Bartlett. Specific episode with physicist Eric Weinstein, which you sent me on Friday or Saturday to listen to. And I just happened to be like getting ready to hop on my mower to
it's the best podcast time.
to hit the yard. And you sent me this podcast and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll check it out. I do enjoy that podcast. I listen to it often. And so I listened to the 2.5 hours worth while I was working on the yard that day. And yeah, I could see why you could pull some things out of there from a secular humanism perspective, is what the world is thinking, what the world is saying, and how close yet how far away they are from the truth of the gospel.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing that the podcast world, especially the deep dive ones, is you get a look inside of the minds of some of the most intelligent people on the planet, right? Rogan has done a great job of this and just being real curious Bartlett does a really good job of a guy that doesn't really know much, but he's just really curious about it.
He's good at asking questions.
Yeah. And oftentimes, like this one with Weinstein, he's a very influential voice in physics, in the scientific community. And I'm listening to this, and he's talking about physics, but he's using scientific language right with it. But he's also using religious language. It's a fascinating idea. He's one of the first physicists I've ever heard that says things like Christianity is the best of all the religions, and everybody should have some kind of religion. The atheist himself says this. But he's using language like thirst and hunger, right? Purpose and meaning. And it's like, I'm like wanting to throw the Bible at my phone going, this is it. Like there's no purpose in physics because it's the one who created the physics, right? That gives us the purpose. And so, yeah, I'm diving in, and it's like for freedom, he set us free. Galatians 5:1, we're literally launching with that. And everything they're describing is a secular humanist version of a religion of saved by works. The works in this case would be enough scientific endeavor that we can save humanity.
Yeah, because he posits rather this idea that we're on the brink of an apocalypse. Humanity is close to being done. That the inevitable end result of humans' actions playing out in this world is the elimination of everything.
Of humanity.
Of humanity itself.
Yeah.
So he's an atheist, self-proclaimed atheist, ethnic Jew.
Yes, DNA was, yeah.
But also promotes Christianity.
Yeah.
In this same podcast. And
Yeah.
he's said this multiple times at different podcasts.
Yeah.
He's, for a really, really smart guy, and someone and he knows he's really, really smart, by the way. It's one of the most pompous podcasts I've ever listened to in my life.
He's very well aware.
For somebody so smart, he seems really confused.
Yeah, because he consistently says when Bartlett poses, okay, well then what do we do? I don't know. I don't know what we do about Iran. I don't know what we do. What he gets right, and he gets a lot right. Like I grew up in the Cold War era. Like, were you guys still hiding under your desks to practice for nuclear war in the 90s?
Never did that one time.
Yeah. In the 80s, in elementary school, like I know in our modern era that kids have to practice active shooter, which is its own danger. We were hiding under desks in case of a nuclear war. Like we would literally have nuclear war drills.
As if that would protect you if it actually happened.
Right. So the sham of that was and then they show us a movie. I'm like, well, I don't think that desk gonna do much, man. I'm gonna be vaporized before I hit the ground. But the thing that, because we've been so accustomed to it, and the assumption is that mutually assured destruction is a doctrine that, hey, if Russia has nukes and America has nukes, then we're not going to nuke each other. That was the whole arms buildup. In fact, Reagan's methodology for actually dissolving the Soviet Union is we just outspent them in their quest to try to keep building nuclear weapons to keep up with us. It literally bankrupted their country. Sounds a little familiar, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Playbook maybe being ran on us right now. But it's become such a part of the zeitgeist that it's important to remember this is an actual real danger. Like it's a real danger of the future of humanity. And he's thinking, maybe not in our lifetime, but what about your fourth generation? Are you thinking about them at all? And he actually at one point goes on to say, you don't have how do you say it? I want my goal here today is that you start thinking at least to the fourth generation, but you don't have a hope for your future. Again, religious language. But what he gets right is here's a 31-year-old guy who is not thinking about his legacy. He's not thinking about the fourth generation. That humans, we tend to not start thinking of that until my age or older. But he's like, and not just your future of your legacy, but like who's going to remember your name in 4 generations? He said, like that's something that and I think that's why he's frustrated. He spends so much energy thinking about real life danger that is a real life threat, and the rest of the world is asleep with it. And so I actually understand, like at one point he said, I don't even know where I am right now. I'm talking to you. Like he's
having an existential crisis.
Yeah, he's like, I'm wasting my time here.
Okay.
But, so he's frustrated. Now, a wiser man would say, okay, this is an opportunity to not insult my host, but to educate him. But he's right that is a real live problem that we just sort of live with, just assuming everything's going to work out.
Are you familiar with the Doomsday Clock?
Oh, yeah.
So the most recent update to the Doomsday Clock is 85 seconds to midnight. I'm really not sure exactly who the groups are, the organizations are that put this information together. But they do. I don't know how often they update this. It's definitely once a year. It might be a couple times a year. I'm not sure. But they're claiming a polycrisis right now, which is multiple crises at the same time. Combination of nuclear instability, AI misalignment. They still claim, climate change.
Yep.
As a tipping point. But 85 seconds to midnight, meaning in 1 minute and 15 seconds, in the big picture of the timeline, is that we're going to explode. Global catastrophe. And this is a bit of what Weinstein's referring to, is that we're running out of time before we nuke each other.
Yeah, I was wanting to verify before I shoot my mouth off here. It's a New Year's resolution. Research before I shoot my mouth off. Like, what is the shortest amount of time on that clock? It was developed in 1947, nuclear scientists. But 1947, when it started, it was 7 minutes, 53. It was 2 minutes, 2020, 2 minutes. The closest we came was 2023, where it was 90 seconds.
Okay.
But
so we're at 85.
85. Now. Like, that's the closest on that clock that we've ever been in the history of humanity.
When was it 7 minutes?
7 minutes was when it very first launched in 47.
That would have been right after World War II?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And the theory is, which by the way, accurate, there's never been a weapon invented in human history that wasn't eventually used. Like it's been used, right? So, and it's been used once in war during World War II and hasn't been again. So the idea that we're not going to ever see it happen in our lifetime or in our kids' lifetime is deliciously naive. Even when you think, so if humans, this is a ethereal, maybe even philosophical, hopefully theological, humans in our desire to want it our way, our will be done on earth as it is in heaven, this is the natural outgrowth of it. Like if humans are in charge, destruction is just the natural, logical conclusion of that. And when it comes to war specifically, and now war that can literally take out humanity, like the fact that we are naive enough to think that humans, and it only takes one human, would still do this, they wouldn't do this, is naive. So his fear is very, very well founded. And I can see why he's angry that we're talking about all this stuff and we somehow, of all the problems in the world, all the money being thrown at federal governments, all that is being thrown at things that are not solving for the future. A little flaw in his strategy is he doesn't know what the solution is. His idea is we'll throw $2 billion at physics and then we can escape from this world. Again, religious language. The story of the Bible, right, is that this world is going to be destroyed. And by the way, look, if whatever you think about climate change, I tend to agree that it has been way overcooked, way overbaked. The problems that we were promised by Al Gore's days, by now we would be underwater. If you look at their timelines, they're wrong all the time, just like they were with the COVID, On the other hand, if humans reject God, humans say, we're going to do this our way, then it would make sense that our technologies that solve a problem create more problems, right? I think it's so. Somebody said so. Whatever. There are no such thing as solutions, only exchanges. You solve this problem, you create another problem. It's the Genesis 3 world.
Exactly.
So is the climate changing? The fact is that throughout history, climate has changed over and over again. So is it natural? Is it man-made? If it is man-made, it doesn't contradict the Bible. This is humanity destroying themselves by rejecting God. So it's possible that it's that. But what was really, I just kept driving back, was everything they're describing in this interview. He spoke of the ladders, that if we could climb this ladder of our job, a ladder of our relationships and community, and it was all about ascending, all about climbing. He didn't use the word, but they used the word, secular humanists use the word evolved. I've evolved more, which of course in their mind is in context with evolution. But what I brought out on Sundays, there's just no ladder tall enough. Like that, none of those ladders would get us out of here. None of those ladders are an escape hatch. They may get you a different view, but they're not getting you out.
Yeah, Weinstein has something called the escape room hypothesis, where he believes we are in an escape room. Have you ever been to an escape room, played one of those games?
No.
I haven't either.
No, they look annoying to me. Like, I feel like if you want to see a family fight, put the Tylers in an escape room.
Yeah, how would that work out, you think? Like, would you do well? Would producer Ethan, camera operator Ethan, would he be the leader?
He would be the one that would probably figure it out. Lauren would be the one bossing everybody around. Ashley would get stressed out.
She'd be like, just get me out of here.
And Maddie'd be bouncing around from clue to clue to clue to clue to clue to clue. So it would be a fascinating. And then Shannon would be like, can we all just love each other and hug each other? And can we just hug it out of here?
Yeah. Yeah, we might need to do a little staff trip to an escape room one time, see how that works. But his hypothesis is that Earth is an escape room, that we need to get out, that we're trapped, and that we can't live here forever. We're going to kill ourselves. So we need to go somewhere else, which I think is a flawed theory in of itself, because we're still human going somewhere else. So it doesn't matter where we are. It's just going to continue to fail.
Right.
Because we're still human. And so his idea is that we need to understand physics more so that we can create hallways. This is the language he uses. Create a hallway from the escape room to another room.
Which in his mind would be another dimension?
Dimensional, interstellar travel. He feels like physics is not expanded, grown, researched enough. Like there's been like a halt to physics. This is his claim. And one of the ways they're trying to combat this is through the Large Hadron Collider.
Yeah.
Out in Switzerland.
Switzerland, yeah.
Is to try to, one of the ways to get bigger is to get smaller. So they're studying atoms and protons and electrons. And we've talked about the Hadron Collider. What's the other name for it? The
Boson Higgs. That's the name of the particle.
The name of the particle. But yeah, the LHC. And just this week, they discovered at the LHC, they discovered heavy matter, which is just another glimpse into us understanding the smallest particles in the world or in the universe. But that's not enough. They are actually trying to find dark matter, understand dark matter through new physics, which is what Weinstein's getting at. He wants to see new physics, a new layer and level of physics. One of the ways they're trying to do that is to create the Large Hadron Collider, but a larger version of it, 3.5 times larger. A 91 kilometer tunnel, circular, of course. I don't know my kilometers well enough to know what that translates into miles. I'm sure we can figure it out.
I don't think we need to. We've opted out of the
Massive.
metric system, yeah.
Massive. They're trying to get approval for this next year. Now, this is what's kind of interesting. It's kind of funny because they're on a race. They're trying to figure this out. How do we get out of the escape room as quickly as possible? Well, stage 1 of the quote unquote Higgs factory to build this thing would green light in 2040, and the completion of this to where they can try to figure out dark matter using this new FCC, the Future Circular Collider, will be completed in 2070. So,
does he think we have enough time? I mean, he seems like, he thinks we're hosed, right?
Yeah.
The thing they just discovered, by the way, that they've posited, I'm going from my memory. So again, fact check away, comment below if I'm messing this up. At the core of, we're made up of atoms, right? Protons, neutrons, electrons. But one of the things that has not yet been explained is protons are positively charged. How is it that, like, two magnets north, they push apart? What is it that holds together the core of an atom? Because it should be blowing apart. By the way, fun fact, do a deep dive on this just if you want to blow your own minds. If an atom were, like, scaled to the size of, say, like a tennis ball, a pencil, or whatever, the amount of empty space in a human is unimaginable.
Yeah.
But it's at such a small scale. Like, technically, we should be falling through this chair right now because there's so much empty space in an atom. When you put your hands together, they should go right through each other. And the only thing that keeps it is gravity that pushes them apart. So it feels like solid, but it's far more empty space inside of us than there is. And at the core of that are these protons at the core of a nucleus that should be pulling apart. They can't figure it out. Now, I would like to posit that when the Bible says that it's Christ that holds all things together, like they call it the strong nuclear force, that's the proton they're looking for, because they're spending hundreds of billions of dollars to try to just figure out why a neutron, an atom doesn't explode on its own, what holds it together. And so the theory was a strong nuclear force, and whatever proton it was they think they've discovered is that, but it's unimaginably small, which is the beauty of God, right? Infinitely large, infinitely small. And if God pulls out, right, I'm going to mix theology and physics in one, God pulling out of the earth. Maybe that's part of what everything falls apart because Christ is not holding it all together anymore. It's just a theory. But he would think that's a crazy thought, while saying with a straight face that time travel is our only, he's calling it a hallway. I suppose another word would be a wormhole, right? Like he's to get from one dimension to another.
Yeah. So this is the idea, is that he feels like actually traveling through space, okay. So like if I want to get to Nashville from here, I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to drive north 30 miles. Okay. And that's how we've always done it for space travel, to get to the moon, to get to Mars, to get to wherever. He's saying that that's not sufficient enough to get to another galaxy.
Yeah, and he's correct about that.
Right? So if that's not sufficient, then we need to understand physics better so that we can travel through space-time dimensionally. Mm-hmm. So when I walk through a portal or I walk through or something happens, I don't know what that thing is that I'm here at 1642 Lewisburg Pike, and then I'm at the Ryman in Nashville instantly.
Yeah.
And if we can figure that out, which he thinks is possible, then we can then relocate to some other dimension.
Yeah.
And they're trying to figure this out. One of the ways they're trying to do this, like this is real stuff. We're trying to orbit the moon again. We're trying to get back to the moon.
I noticed you said back to the moon.
Well, we don't have time for that. But
I still believe we got there. I don't send your email somewhere else, but anyway.
Yeah, well, they're sending Artemis II. the first trip is they're going to orbit the moon for the first time since 1972. We haven't orbited the moon in 50-something years. But that's going to be a precursor for landing on the moon, I think in 2 more years. And so they're doing a flyby next month, April. And so again, they're doing the research to see if we can put a base on the moon. It's somewhere to send people to. Again, escape room, escape hatch.
Oh wait, so their theory is we could live on the moon?
That's like an initial step, like a rest stop on the way farther out.
Huh.
Right? And then Mars, they're trying to figure out how to get people to Mars. We've already had, whatever they're called, these research vehicles on Mars, since Mars, which is a 9-month trip going really, really fast.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure that out, but they can't figure out how to do orbital refueling because it needs more fuel to carry people. They don't know, like when we have all these bombers in Iran, we have refueling planes that help get them there between here and there. So how do we do that in space? How do we refuel a rocket in space that's 6 months from here, 9 months from here, year and a half from here? Like I have no clue how that works. So they're also working on another project called Breakthrough Starshot. This is insane.
Who's they, by the way? Is this a federal
scientists?
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe the government. It's a project using 100 gigawatt Earth-based lasers to push light sails at 20% the speed of light, with the hopes of reaching Alpha Centauri in 20 years from now. And these light sails, I did a big deep dive into this. These light sails are literally like the size of like a pinhead of a needle. That's how small it needs to be. And if you remember, when we talked to Hugh Ross almost 2 years ago about this, he said that in order for anything to travel that far, that fast, it has to be microscopic.
Yeah, because again, as far as physics go,
yes,
the machine will not hold up against the.
Yeah, so they're trying to figure out how to beam communications, like a communication piece, outside of our universe. 20-year travel using lasers. Like they've got all this put together. It's called Operation Breakthrough Starshot.
What are they putting on the laser? Like an SOS?
Some sort of communication to be able to receive, to hear itself back. Like it'll get that far and then communicate back that it's still in touch so that it can know that it still exists.
Interesting.
That far outside of the universe. So they're trying to answer the question, can we get outside of our universe and still have communication?
Huh.
Or is it a dimension? Dude, this is such nerdy stuff. I have no idea. Like the deep dives I've been into in the past 48 hours, melting my brain. But the fact is like you have all these scientists and physicists and philosophers trying to figure out how do we get off of this planet so that we can survive 4 generations away, so that we can preserve humanity. Like this is these are active projects spending billions and billions and billions of dollars to figure this out.
Yeah. Their faith is in science. That's what he's saying. Like we have to double down on science, and their hope is that science will figure it out. Listen when you're listening to interviews or what, and how many times you hear somebody, whether it's with AI or what. Well, we by the time we get there, fossil fuels, for instance, once we get there, by then technology will have figured out another way. How do we know that? And the only answer is, well, we always have. And the truth is we haven't always have. Right? In the last 100 years, we've figured out a lot, but that's not history. That's 100 years. History, thousands of years of human history, is that great nations rise, great nations fall. Right? That's history. And the future that Weinstein is predicting, he's not the first one to predict it. The Bible did. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but in Zechariah 12, speaking of the day of the Lord, it just came to me. I'm hoping like this morning, I want to read this to you because this is a fascinating thought. So this is Zechariah chapter 14, not 12. He's talking about the day of the Lord, right? That's what he's specifically talking about. He's talking about Jesus coming back, the Mount of Olives, yada, yada. But he talks about, verse 9, I'm going to be king over the whole earth on that day. There will be one Lord. His name is holy. He talks about this plague, though, that the Lord will strike the nations that fought against Jerusalem. Listen to this description. Their flesh will rot while they are still standing on their feet. Their eyes will rot in their sockets, and their tongues will rot in their mouths before they even hit the ground. On that day, people will be stricken by the Lord with a great panic. That's literally you could say that exact same thing with a nuclear war, that people, their flesh burns off before their body hits the ground. Like, he didn't know about nuclear war, but when you, this book that I read last year, Annie, I can't remember her name, but it's simply called Nuclear War, right? And all she does is a fictional account of what could happen in the instance of a nuclear war. And I had
It'll make you sweat.
I had to hit pause a couple times because something I didn't know was that if a weapon is launched against the U.S., A, we have no way to really know if there is a nuclear warhead in it. B, we don't know necessarily where it came from. So 30 minutes from the time the missile leaves to the time it lands, and it means the President of the United States has 6 minutes to make a decision. Oh my gosh. Right? And that assumes he gets the information the second the launch happens. So it's more like 3 minutes to make a decision. Who shot this? Do we shoot back? Is it a nuclear weapon? Was it North Korea? Was it Russia? Was it Iran? We don't know. So he has 3 minutes. Now imagine President Biden in that situation. They'd have to wake him up first, like he'd be like half asleep. And on the other hand, imagine Trump, who shoots first and thinks later a lot of times. Like he's not screwing around. But point is, that is a very real possibility in our earth. And if my faith is in science, that feels a lot like Red in Shawshank Redemption saying hope is a dangerous thing. Because what he really meant was false hope is a dangerous thing. I'm never getting out of here. So if I just hope that I'm going to get out of here, somebody's going to figure it out. That's not hope. That's delusion. The biblical definition of hope is Hebrews 12, I have an absolute faith in a certain future that is mine, not based on physics, but one who created physics, that I will be remembered in 4 generations, maybe not on this earth, but in eternity I will. That's the future for us. That's the sure hope for us.
Weinstein gets really close to that. Let's go ahead and play the clip from that interview.
Do you pray?
It's a good question.
You'll come over Friday night and pray with us.
I'd say I do pray,
That's pretty weak.
but it's not the way that I see prayer in movies and stuff.
So that's the thing, right? We have this idea that somebody puts their hands together and they just believe.
Yeah.
A lot of time when you're praying, you don't really believe. You're not sure that you're doing anything sensible. You feel ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true even if you're a believer.
Do you think we need religion?
Yeah, said the atheist.
Are you an atheist?
Yeah. But I take religion super seriously. I don't think we're meant to live without it.
That's an interesting conundrum.
I don't think so. Everybody gets hung up on it. I sort of wonder what their problem is.
Please explain. So you believe that we aren't meant to live without religion. We're meant to be orientated by something transcendent, but you don't believe that it's real.
I think that, there's this great trick that I learned when I was scuba diving, which is that your need to breathe is triggered by the buildup of CO2 in your lungs. And there are all sorts of things you can do to decrease your need to breathe. One is you can hyperventilate, and you can get rid of all of the CO2 that's residual. You can also inure your lungs to CO2 by smoking. You can also breathe out the precious air that your instincts tell you to hold in. You can do all these things, and then you can go super deep. You can learn how to equalize the pressure in your ears by holding your nose in these techniques. And suddenly you're far deeper than you've ever been, and you're exploring the rocks and the fishes, and there's a turtle and there's an eel. And you get a message, you're out of air. And you look up and you see, I am really far from the surface. This is terrifying. That's what happens when you unhook the proximate, which is air hunger, from the ultimate, which is the need to breathe. So thirst is proximate to dehydration. Hunger is proximate to the need for nourishment. In part, religion and prayer is there to keep us from unhooking all of these protective things and just turning life into a hoot. You can have a hoot without religion, but if everybody has a hoot, the whole society collapses.
If everybody has a hoot, society falls apart. That's America in a sentence. Everybody wants to have a hoot. But I'm listening to that, and he's using metaphors of food, right? Of water, of air, of a new heaven, new earth. It's literally the whole thing he's talking about. And just to give you a little biblically language, right? He's talking about, he's going to refer to in this interview, life going on, your name, long past you, Ecclesiastes 3:11, eternity is written in our hearts. Like that's actually supposed to be inside of us. But he's talking about the air. Like, so we're running out of air here, and all these techniques, which I would be another way of saying the ladders. We can climb this ladder, it's just techniques, and you're still going to run out of air. And when you run out of air, right, you're over. But I don't know, maybe it's just a coincidence that Jesus in John 22, when the disciples, when he saw them, it says that he breathed on them. Adam, God breathed into his, the ruach, the breath, the air of the Spirit. Like that's the air that we need. Psalm 42, the thirst, right, as the deer pants for the water, right? And what, I shared this in a sermon once, but deer only pant when they're panicked, when they're in anxiety. That's when they pant. They're freaked out and they need water for, in the middle of that. So there's the water, and then the hunger, John 6:35, Jesus, I am the bread of life. Like science has nothing to answer the deeper longing of a human soul, which is where Bartlett is struggling with. What about the transcendent, right? He's talking about something deeper than this. As far as I can tell, Weinstein rejects the deeper need maybe, but he almost uses the same kind of language that Stalin would have used, but he's using it in a positive. Stalin would have used it in a negative, that religion is the opiate of the people. The idea that it quiets them, but that's not the purpose of religion, is just to get people to be quiet and peaceful. Like it's to save us from this world. 2 Peter 3, like a new heaven, a new earth. We look forward to a new heaven, a new earth. Revelation 22, I saw a new heaven and a new earth. Like that is the plan from the beginning, that the Genesis 3 world could not survive. And whether you believe that it's a recreation of our current one or a new creation of a brand new one, either way, that's the solution that God promises, that he proved, right, that he could when he was crucified, buried, resurrected on the third day, defeating death. Like the miracle of that, he defeated physics at that point, right? He defeated death. He defeated the future. I'm going to put my lot in with the guy that proved he could do it, not the guy that philosophizes that he might be able to pull it off with enough $1 billion.
Yeah, and speaking of a guy with $1 billion trying to fight against the apocalypse, is another guy named Peter Thiel, who's in the news this week, holding a conference in Rome. It's a private 4-lecture series on the Antichrist, AI, and the apocalypse. I would love to go to this. 165 attendees, and they all had to sign NDAs. Did you hear about that?
Yeah. Which is weird because he's talking about this stuff so publicly, so it makes me wonder what he's saying behind the scenes.
Yeah. A secretive venue in Italy. invitation only, NDAs. But what he's trying to get to, he has an Antichrist thesis, and that there's not going to be a single villain, but a one world global system that is ushered in by the proliferation of AI, that will create a tech world, that is completely governed, policed by artificial intelligence, which is what you're kind of seeing in China already, in a large way. And so his big thing is that AI could usher in the Antichrist as a global technocracy. Is that the right word?
Yeah, probably. Tech tyranny, I would say.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And so because that's possible, there's going to be a clamp down on regulation for AI, and that regulation would cause the tech tyranny. So he's saying, take all the guards off, accelerate AI, and the acceleration of AI will avoid an apocalypse.
Yeah, so once again, technology and science saving the day.
Right.
The ladder, the stairway to heaven. We talked about Tower of Babel on Sunday, the best technology they had at that time. And what did they do with it? They wanted to reach the heavens.
Yeah, Babel.
And here we are, thousands of years later, and the same thing. We want to reach the heavens. And we do because eternity is written in our hearts. That's biblical. It's anthropologists might use different words for it, but they might say we evolved to it, whatever they would say, but we were designed with that, which is why we all long for being connected to something transcendent. What we're connecting to, what we're desiring is God himself. And what Thiel is, as best I understand, I've listened to a couple of interviews with him. He seems to have this idea that we can, if we're humans, if we're good enough, we can defeat the Antichrist. We can prevent this from ever happening.
Yeah, well, he has something called the catacon concept. Catacon concept. I'm not sure what the root of that word catacon is.
It sounds like a conference for cat people, but that's a whole other thing.
Would you go? That's the question.
100%
no. His concept is that we can be and he uses this phrase, a biblical restrainer of the coming Antichrist. He quotes and uses 2 Thessalonians 2, 6 and 7 that says, "And you know what is restraining him now, so that he may be revealed in his time. For the mystery of lawlessness is already at work. Only he who now restrains it will do so until he is out of the way." So this is his concept, is that we can restrain, we can hold back, we can put a seatbelt on the Antichrist to help preserve order in the world. Those of you that don't know Peter Thiel, he's I guess you could say an inventor.
Yeah, I mean, if you've ever paid something on PayPal, you may not know him, but he knows you.
Yeah, so the derivatives of PayPal, Venmo. He was a large part of Twitter launch. I mean, that was his behind all of that. He's now owner of, CEO, I'm not sure, Palantir. Palantir, which is, they have a broad scope of products, including AI, but also defense systems, used in war. There's so many things that Palantir does, but it's so interesting that he is having a conversation right now. Like as we're recording this, he is in Italy having a conversation with 165 dignitaries and or quote unquote important people to talk about how we throttle the Antichrist from coming by accelerating AI.
Yeah. And with great irony, because when John, I think the only place in the New Testament that it's actually referred to as Antichrist is in 1st, 2nd, or 3rd John. lots of different names, the man of lawlessness. But John says that the spirit of Antichrist is already here. And the word anti in Greek doesn't mean against, it means in place of. So Thiel trying to defeat Antichrist is actually being Antichrist. Like, in place of Christ, I'm going to defeat Antichrist. So there's a little bit of a delicious irony. But this is what happens when you let the world interpret the word instead of the word interpreting the world, right? I agree, right, that a force is holding back Antichrist, but it's the church, right? The Holy Spirit in the earth with the church, and when that is removed, I know that it's become kind of pejorative now to say that you believe in a pre-tribulation rapture, but this is part of the passage that, because he would say in there, you're not appointed unto wrath, right? In the time of this tribulation that's coming, the Bible refers to as the time of Jacob's wrath. It's God's wrath poured out on a Christ-rejecting sinful world. But in that passage it says, but you were not appointed for wrath. So, is it possible that we're here and we're like Noah's Ark? Yeah, possible. But point is once that force is removed, that's when Antichrist comes in and fills the vacuum with it. So it's not like a force that we can deploy, right? In the same way that we can't speed up the return of Christ with bloodshed and all that, we can't slow the return of Christ because we're being really well behaved and finally getting a grip on our technology. Like it's the fullness of time. Even in that passage, when the time, there is a time. Jesus said, no man knows the time or the hour, right? There is a time. It is coming. It's going to come like a thief in the night. There's no amount of physics in the world, right? There's no amount of philosophers, of ideologies, nothing that can prevent the fullness of time when it comes. And for what it's worth, according to the biblical record, creation happened 6,000 years ago. And what happens in the seventh day? A day is like 1,000 years. 1,000 years is like a day. It's a day of rest. We could be closer than we realize. We don't know the day or the hour, so do not hear me. I'm not predicting 88 reasons why Jesus is coming back or 2025 reasons why he's coming back in 25. I am 26. Saying 26. Oh my goodness. But he did say we would know the seasons are changing. Yeah. And they're changing here, right? Contrary to the no degrees it was last night, I had to put blankets over my tulips, right? There's flowers on the trees because the seasons are changing. And when you see these things, he said, look up, your redemption draws nigh. John Bevere, we should have him on the podcast, actually. He's releasing a book right now, that the King is Coming, which I was really proud of him for wading into those waters, just knowing how many bullets we take over here for that. I probably shouldn't use the word bullets right now. That feels quite literal. Let's say arrows. How many arrows we're taking here when we talk about this stuff. But man, almost every New Testament letter, Paul refers to it over. I think there's only 3 books in the New Testament that do not refer to the return of Christ. If the Bible talks about it that much and we're talking about it this much, we need to match what we're talking about with what the Bible's talking about. So it matters to us. And it's not supposed to be a scary thing. I think that same passage in 2 Thessalonians, he would say, therefore comfort one another with these words. If you're being scared by it, if you're, A, then either I'm not doing my job, or B, there's some heart searches you need to do. But I know this, Pakistan, Nepal, Africa, they don't look at the return of Christ as bad news. They look at it as really good news. Finally, something's going to change for us. We're just so comfortable that we think that this is good enough for us. Our little slice of hell is good enough to be counted as heaven in our minds. And that's a really sad way to live.
It makes me wonder when Weinstein's talking about the importance of religion, and if he truly believed that Jesus was who he said he was, that he was the Messiah, would that finally click for him?
Yes, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
He views him as a good teacher, a moral example. It's not unlike what Islam would say about, Jesus. It's definitely a lot like what progressive theologians would say about Jesus. It's just not what Jesus would say about Jesus.
Do you think that the Antichrist could be artificial intelligence?
No.
Yeah, it has to be a person,
Yeah,
right?
I do think.
Biological person.
Yeah, I mean, Revelation, super clear. Daniel, like the man of lawlessness. By the way, of lawlessness, and what are we seeing in our nation, right? Lawlessness. It is a human. Now, could he use AI technology? 100%.
Sure. No, I sure would expect that.
Yeah, I think that when you speak specifically of what's happening with AI, there's a lot of dangers in our future. But one that not very many, maybe I've only heard one other person talk about this, is the one thing AI is doing is the cost of running a tyranny is plummeting. When you think about the jobs in Silicon Valley and how we don't need as many people to run the companies anymore, now think about, Ayatollah Mo here. What is his name?
Motaba Khamenei. The unfortunate name for Khamenei's son is Mo.
Yeah. And Mo's new nickname here is the Ayamola. But I just came up with that. Write that down. God, what was I even saying?
Ayatollah Khomeini.
I don't remember what I was saying.
Well,
it was worth that joke though to forget.
Yeah, no, it's good. Just the AI is they're propping him up.
The cost of running a tyranny plummeted. So Saddam needed hundreds of thousands of people to carry out his horrible things. Now imagine you don't need all these research assistants, also known as assassins, but with your AI, you can do it through drone technology, through AI. Like the fact that we're using AI right now to hit targets without having to have assets on the ground. Like the cost of running a tyranny has plummeted, which means the power of a tyranny can grow even greater. So now reverse engineer that to Antichrist,
right? And
having a global ability for buying and selling, right? That's one of the things it talks about, having a global, even at one point in Revelation, these two witnesses that were murdered in the streets and then are resurrected from the dead, on the positive side, it says the whole world is going to watch them at once. Like when I travel, you've traveled with me. I know actually everybody but Elijah has traveled with me. That's coming for you. This in the most remote parts of the earth, there are smartphones everywhere. They're like ubiquitous. For the first time in history, since Jesus said, I'm returning, everything is in place that for these things to be happening that were prophesied how is that even going to be possible? And now we're like, oh, that's how the whole world could watch. Not just on a TV, on a phone. So yeah, with Peter Thiel, like he fits into that Venn diagram, right, that I showed. He might vote the way that we're voting, but he doesn't believe the way we're believing. And so us talking about this isn't, to bash, but it's to say, look, keep our eyes open, be awake for what is actually true, hold to the gospel. Yeah, we're going to vote the same way, but we're not going to live the same way because it's not the gospel. And our hope would be inviting more people from these other circles into the only circle that matters, which is Jesus himself, because long into the future, all the other circles go away, even our voting, the only thing left is the gospel. And if we're not in that one, sadly for Eric Weinstein, he's out of oxygen at that point and he drowns.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of beat me to the punch in the fact that, we used a lot of sad words today. Apocalypse, Doomsday Clock, polycrisis, Earth is an escape room. We got to get out of here. It's like, what is the hope? Obviously, as believers, we know, but how can we be dialed into the freedom that we're discussing, that we're learning about through Galatians, to be unchained from these things, and that the hope that we truly have? Like, how can we practically be focused on what is true when we're surrounded by all these ideas and philosophies?
Yeah, and it's as simple as it's ever been, man. Walk by the Spirit and not gratifying the desires of the flesh, which is Galatians 5, by the way. We're heading into that this coming week. But that's it. Like, the more food that I'm taking in that is feeding fear and anxiety, what we talked about a couple weeks ago, right? The stronger the dark dog inside of me grows, the more I'm feeding on, what did Jesus say? My food is doing the will of the one who sent me. I'm the bread of life. There's all this language around food that is in the Word. It's in a relationship and a connection with Jesus. And yeah, we could not talk about any of this because we don't want to scare anybody. Some people would say, well, hey, whatever things are lovely, of a good report, but it also says whatever things are true. Right. So to eliminate true, that becomes a false hope at that point. Like it's all going to work itself out. It's all going to be okay. Based on what? What history do you think is now going to protect our future? Like based on the fact that we're probably going to figure out how to, when oil runs out, we'll probably figure it out. None of that is a guarantee. The only guarantee we have is the one that resurrected from the dead, said, I'm coming back. And I'm just simple enough to believe that he meant it. That's our hope.
Yeah, that's good. We'll talk about more on that on Sunday. I just feel like there's a trend even on social media where things are running out. Like ideas are running their course and they're coming to their obvious conclusion where it doesn't satisfy, where the ladder's too short.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that start to pop up online with people kind of telling their stories and their testimonies. Like, I've tried this, I did this, I've lived this way, and I'm out of options. And it seems like there's just a little bit of a crack in the door open where the light's shining through and people are finding hope in the only thing that can bring hope.
Yeah.
And that's really encouraging.
I'm blown away in all the best ways by how many people on any given Sunday in Middle Tennessee are giving me the God nod, like eyes open straight at me, tears on their face. And everything we've been doing is pointing towards dismantling. I think it's 2 Corinthians 10:5. That, part of our job is to tear down arguments that raise themselves above the knowledge of Christ. That's literally part of what we are called to do. And it matters, especially with the amount of voices. I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm having a hard time keeping up with all the ideas and the philosophies and the splinters and the
every day it's different.
Right. So it's, part of my job, right, is to stay ahead as best I can and then hit the ideas that seem to be like the one that I shared from the Atlantic, which is we need Christian nationalism now. We just need the Christian nationalism that thinks abortion is okay and that you can cut off a little boy's wiener so that he can be a girl. Like those are terrible ideas that exalt themselves above the knowledge of God. So yeah, we name names because I want me and everybody to know that is not a biblical idea. Just because he's got a smile on his face does not mean he's doing something evil and wicked. And for us to be discerning, we've got to be in the Word. I was having a conversation a couple of weeks ago with a group full of people, and we were talking specifically about the promises for Israel. And one of the girls, she was actually 20 years old, and she said, if people were just reading their Bible every day, I don't know how they could possibly come to these other conclusions. I'm like, well, that's why they're not in their Bibles on a regular and consistent basis. They're in podcasts, they're listening to Instagram reels, but in the Word, if we, it's one of the reasons this benefit of this 90 days in the Bible, it's a horse race. But you cannot leave that reading the Bible in that amount of time and not see the consistent theme over and over and over again, that Jesus' return is to a literal nation, a literal people, right? That's right in the middle of it. But in the Word, that also means, it's why the eschatology matters so much around Israel, is that it matters around the entire world. And that's the hope of our future. It's the hope for our kids, for our grandkids. I have no idea if he's coming back this afternoon or in 100 years. People say all the time, right? People have been saying that for 2,000 years, and sure they have, right? But that's, Jesus left it specifically as you're not going to know the day or the hour, because, if you do, I don't know about you, but like my senior year of high school, my grades plummeted.
Yeah, that's a great analogy,
Right?
right?
I knew I was getting out of here. It doesn't matter anymore. But if I didn't know that, and I knew there's something coming out, I would just keep. So Jesus, he wasn't stupid. He left it that way on purpose. And at the same time saying that in the first time in history, there are things in place that were never in place before, right? There's a literal Israel. There's technology that can infiltrate the whole world. Everything is in place, including the nations of Ezekiel 37, 38, and 39 that are the exact same nations you're seeing rise up right now against Israel.
It's good. We could probably talk another hour on a lot of this, but we won't. We'll save that for next week. We'll save that for Sunday as well. Thank you for joining us on this week's podcast. If you haven't had the chance to join us on a Sunday, we invite you to do that. ConduitChurch.com, you can check out one of the 4 services that we have available. You can watch online during our 9:45 service, and then maybe join us for Easter Sunday on April the 5th at 10 a.m. at the Williamson County Ag Center. We're going to have one service, one celebration with our church family. Invite you to join us for that. All the information is, again, on our website. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon.